Hello Zimbabwe, welcome to LiveTalk. We're coming to you live from Studio 7 at the Voice of America in Washington, and I'm your host, Marvellous Mhlanga-Nyahuye. Tonight, we are discussing the opening of schools countrywide tomorrow. But first, let's take a look at what is happening here in the United States. Despite the fact that many of the encampments at university campuses have been dismantled, pro-Palestinian demonstrators in the United States are standing their ground. If the protesters continue, some analysts say they could have an impact in the 2024 presidential election. VOA Veronica Blandaris Iglesias explains.
Over 20 pro-Palestinian demonstrators were arrested by police and saw their encampment forcefully dismantled Saturday at the University of Virginia. But scenes like this don't seem to discourage the protesters, many of whom have already taken their demands to their graduation ceremonies in states like Michigan. After Tuesday's police clearing of a building that had been taken over by protesters at Columbia University, New York City Mayor Eric Adams appeared Sunday on ABC's This Week show. He said law enforcement will ensure calm prevails during the graduation ceremonies.
We will do our job, and if the institutions decide to graduate their students and celebrate a beautiful experience with their families, we will make sure it's done in a peaceful manner. President
Joe Biden addressed the protests Thursday, and his re-election campaign co-chair, Mitch Landrieu, appeared Sunday on CNN's State of the Union to underscore Biden's core message.
Everybody has a right to protest, but they have to protest peacefully. If they're protesting violently, that has to end. There's no place for that. There's no place for anti-Semitism. There's no place for Islamophobia.
On his part, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, renewed his criticism of the pro-Palestinian demonstrations Sunday. He posted on his Truth social media platform that Biden is, quote, the primary reason for all these terrible protests. It's a political strategy that Trump is using to support his own re-election bid, says political scientist Michael Traugott.
And he wants them to stop. He wants protesters, including students, to be arrested and removed from campus. But he doesn't understand, or he doesn't want to acknowledge, that the president has little direct control over any of this.
If they continue, however, the protests could have an impact on the November election, Traugott says.
I think the protests generally do favor Donald Trump because they are contrary to the views of a large portion of his supporters. And they would be more likely to turn out, while on the other hand, they could depress turnout among young people, mostly Democratic, who would support Joe Biden.
It is expected that President Biden will talk about efforts to combat anti-Semitism when he gives a keynote speech on Tuesday at the Holocaust Museum. Trump's week will also be busy with courtroom appearances related to his criminal trial in New York and preparations for a new campaign rally in New Jersey on May 11th. Veronica Valderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
And in Kenya, some residents of Nairobi's suburbs are up in arms over what they say is illegal construction of high-rise buildings in their estates, mainly by Chinese contractors. Juma Majanga reports from Nairobi.
In Nairobi's Kilimani suburbs, residents like Chere say are pondering their next move to stop what they say is illegal construction in their estate.
What we are suffering from now is unplanned construction. If you don't have sewage, you don't have wider roads, you don't have fire stations, you don't have enough schools, you don't have hospitals, all you're doing is just building and building and building accommodation without the requisite planning.
Kilimani is one of the areas where residents are speaking out against the construction of high-rise buildings. Architect Alfred Omenya heads urban development consultancy EcoBuild Africa.
A lot of the buildings that we are seeing around here do not even meet that same City Hall's development control requirements. And they're approved in City Hall. They're actually approved in City Hall. And I can say this without fear of contradiction. For donkey years, City Hall has been the citadel of corruption.
Cherotich claims Chinese firms are using corrupt practices to circumvent legal procedures.
And I really call out the Chinese Property Developers Association here. They're complicit. They have understood the propensity and appetite for corruption that you find in this county, and they have exploited it to the hilt.
City government officials declined VOA's request for comment, and Chinese builders did not respond to VOA's request for a response to the claims. Economist XN Iraqi, however, says Chinese contractors have brought efficiency to the construction industry.
Lest there be competition. I think that is going to raise the Kenyan construction industry. The Kenyan expertise are going to run something. In the long run, the customers are going to benefit because there's no competition. We shall do shoulder work, we cannot be efficient.
The Kenyan constitution requires involvement of citizens on governance decisions on issues that affect them.
Whereas the law provides very elaborately about public participation, and we have adequate legislation around that, but the practice itself is still being done as a lip service. We still have the government officers calling for public participation when they've already made a decision. So they're doing it just to tick the boxes.
Heavy rains and deadly flooding in Kenya recently are compounding problems caused by unplanned construction, says Omenya.
By the time you have those areas built, you are not likely, especially in these areas where we're looking at 1 acre development, the entire space is going to be concrete. Where does that water go?
And as the World Bank projects 70% of the global population will live in cities by 2050, experts say planning will be key for cities like Nairobi. Juma Majanga, VOA News, Nairobi.
Thanks, Juma, for that report. Zimbabwe's Prosecutor General Justice Lois Matandamoyo says the country is losing over US $1.8 billion annually through corruption and illicit financial flows, resulting in the derailment of its plans to attain an upper middle class income economy vision by 2030. Justice Matandamoyo said this at a financial and asset recovery training workshop in Harare today.
Corruption remains one of the greatest barricades to the resuscitation of an economic thriving Zimbabwe and hinders the prospects of the attainment of our Vision 2030. So if we don't fight corruption, we may not be able to see a successful Vision 2030 coming into fruition. So as stakeholders here present today, you are very important in ensuring that we attain Vision 2030 as a country. And I urge you all to play your part in ensuring that this Vision 2030 is realized. Corruption is endemic and systemic, as the ZAC chairperson has already said, and has permeated all known boundaries. It is estimated, as has already been said, that Zimbabwe, we are losing $1.8 billion United States dollars annually due to corruption. That is a huge sum of money, and you can imagine what $1.8 billion could do. Such illicit financial flows are unacceptable and bleed the economy of revenue meant to promote sustainable economic development and the betterment of the livelihoods of all Zimbabweans. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, that we totally eradicate corruption in Zimbabwe and recover stolen assets.
That there was Prosecutor General Justice Lois Matandamoyo speaking at a workshop in Harare. Back to our main topic of the day. Schools are opening for the second term tomorrow amid grumblings from some parents who say some schools are demanding payment of fees in United States dollars instead of the new currency, the Zimbabwe gold or ZiG. Thousands of boarding school children started returning to their respective schools today. Meanwhile, in Chivu, a combi with Mutero High School children on the road veered off the road, the Bite Bridge Harare Road, and rode 3 times. Some of the children and driver who were seriously injured are currently seeking medical treatment at a local health facility. According to the police, at the same time, the Ministry of Education said today schools should accept payment of fees and tuition in the ZiG currency. The ministry says it would take drastic action against schools rejecting the local currency. Parents, however, are concerned about the payment of school fees and related costs in foreign currency. Harare street vendor Beauty Chitemerere is amongst those concerned Zimbabweans.
Mafizi asati apo zvinhu zviri kunetsa hatina kana chatambokwanisa kureiza ngozi uri kuti wakada kutengesa panapa kanzuru iri kutitsoma ZRP iri kutitsoma ukabatwa neZRP inoda mari ukabatwa nekanzuru vanoda kutonyora saka zvinhu zvacho zvokuti isusu ndakabatwa panapa neZRP anokuisa macraft apo anoda $5 womba $5 apo ndahodha ndochida profit pamwe $2 pastaff yangu ndopa ZRP $5 ndatotora mari yestaff yacho neprofit zvese kanzuru akakubata nokutorera zvinhu zvese okuisa macraft oenda kuZRP saka zvinhu zvacho nezvinezvi zviri kutonetsa neyekuti machange hatina yekuti tikwanise kuchinja zvinhu zve50 cents vanhu vakaomerwa saka 50 cents inofanira kureza pazvinhu zvedu saka change hatina munhu kuti atenge zvinhu zvedhora anenge akaomerwa saka padhora apa ada kukwira komu 50 cents ada kutenga saka ari kusaridza kuenda nemari yake yese saka izvinezvi kuti titengese togona kupedza 1 week ndesaga 1 ndakabatwa nepolisi ndatonyura ndakabatwa nekanzuru ndatonyura because kanzuru iri kudawo mari inotonyorwa polisi iri kudawo mari inotonyorwa.
That there was street vendor Beauty Chitemerere speaking in Harare. Please stay tuned as we take a short break. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
For those that have just joined us, please note that we are streaming live this discussion on our Facebook pages, VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7, and VOA Ndebele. We are also live on YouTube at VOA Zimbabwe. And today we're discussing the openings of schools for second term in Zimbabwe. And to discuss this issue, we are joined by Ms. Sokoluthe Ndlovu, Matabeleland North Provincial Chairperson of the Amalgamated Rural Teachers Union of Zimbabwe, and Ms. Luci Ndongwe Chikowero. But I'll start off with you, Ms. Ndlovu. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much. Can you give us an overview of what you're seeing on the ground? You are right there deep in the rural areas, and you say that you traveled today to start school tomorrow. What are you seeing on the ground?
I'm sorry, come again, and I need to get that.
I'm saying, what are you seeing there at your school as you await for school to start tomorrow?
Looking at the teachers, the morale is very low because things are tight for them. It's very tight. The morale is very low. There's no that enthusiasm that we always had long back when we were opening schools. So, yeah.
And also, the schools in the rural area, are they asking for payment in ZiG or in United States dollars for school fees from the parents?
So far, we are not sure about what is going to take place. Maybe by tomorrow we'll have from the administration, that's why we have full information what they're paying. But most of the time they've been paying in US dollars and other TGs during that time. So now we don't even know what's going to happen.
Maybe if we may switch to Ndebele, just tell us what you're seeing on the ground there. You are a teacher yourself in the rural areas. What are you feeling right now? What is the feeling amongst other teachers there today?
That's what I said. The teacher, the morale is very low. Most of them, they've got the children at boarding schools. Things are not balancing. They have somewhere to resort to taking loans so that they can cover the fees, because most schools wanted fees up front, especially boarding schools, even some day schools. So they just came to school for the sake of coming to work, but no, they're not paid at all.
Maybe if you can say something for us in Ndebele about what you're seeing.
Sorry?
If you can say something in Ndebele.
I see something in Ndebele
pertaining what you're seeing on the ground as a teacher yourself.
Okay, last time ababalisi ezikoleni udlala ivane lebona babendala ngokuvula kwezikole ukuthi bekhangele ukuthi bazafundisa abafundi kuhle bephansi ngoba abaningi nabo bengababalisi kanjalo bangabazali bakhangela indleko zesikole ezifunakalayo kakhulu abantwana abasema-boarding schools. Indleko zakhona ziningi kakhulu, le mali esiyitholayo esiphiwayo ayeneli ukuthi ithenge izinto ezifunekayo esikole, njalo ibhadale i-school fees, njalo ilethe umbalisi lo esikolo esisemaphandleni esebatshiya imuli yakho koBulawayo. So kunzima kakhulu babalisini laba vela kuladlabuzane umuntu lomuntu nje vele ukhanya ibonakala ngokudana because izinto vela zihlangana.
Thank you so much. I'll come now to you. Thank you so much for your patience, Mrs. Luci Ndongwe Chikowero, who's right here in the United States but works with communities in rural Zimbabwe. Tell us, what are you hearing from those communities that you work with regarding the schools opening tomorrow?
Thank you so much, Sis Marve. From the people that we work with and the schools that we work with, their fees, school fees, is pegged in US dollars. So it's actually up to you to go and find the ZIG or the RTGS, because they do accept payments in ZIG or RTGS because these are rural schools, but their benchmark is the US dollar. So it's up to you to find the equivalent to that.
Saka imi munoona sei apa tichiona kuti hurumende yazivisa nhasi kuti zvikoro zvese zvinofanira kutambira zigi uyezve hazvifanira kutara mari inobhadharwa nevabereki paUS dollar. Munoona zvichibuda here izvi?
Chinonesa chacho ndechekuti ukanga uchida kutarisa from a business point of view, it doesn't make sense because kuti ubhadhare neRTGS richiri kushanda pamwe chete neZig. Mari yacho haishandi, and we want functional schools. But ukanga uchitarisa from a parent's point of view, it doesn't also make sense because my US dollar acho unenge usina. Saka it becomes zvinorema makatarisa uremu hwazvo zvose, because we want functional schools, quality education for vana, which can also not be achieved if we are underfunding the schools.
Saka imi pamunenge muri kutaura nevari kumaruva ava muri kuvati chii panyaya iyoyi yekuti imi mari muri kutowanawo kunoku kumadhona ekuti mutumirewo kuti vana vaende kuzvikoro, munovati chii?
Kune vana vatinobatsira isu seMTC tinongovabhadharira kuti vana vakwanise kunge vachidzidza, but zvinoremera nekuti mumaruva and tinoziva kuti gore rino kwanga kuine drought. Vamwe vana havazi pabhimu, even kana vanga vari pabhimu, mari yebhimu inononoka kuenda kuzvikoro. Saka maconversation anonetsa kuita nevakuru vezvikoro nema-administrators emuzvikoro kuti tozvifambisa sei kuti dzidzo yevana ipfuurire mberi zvisina kukanganisika.
Thank you very much there. Tombodzoka kwamuri Miss Ndlovu. Timbovunza kuti ikoko tinoona kuti kumaruva sekutaura kwaita Miss Ndongwe Chikowero kuti vamwe vari pabhimu nezvimwe zvakadaro. Kumaruva kwakamira sei pavana panyaya iyoyi yemaschool fees? I think we may have lost Ms. Ndlovu, but we will try to contact also Mr. Robson Chere, who might be having a better line. He was saying that he's waiting for us to call him, and we're also waiting for Mr. Joe, who also wants to be on the program, so we'll keep continuing to call them. Coming back to you, Ms. Chikowero, imi munoshanda sei nevanhu vekumaruva ava takamirira hedu vari kubva kuZimbabwe?
Isu tinowanzoshanda nevanasikana. Chinangwa chedu chiri chekumisa dambudziko rekuroorwa kwevana vadiki. Pavana vatinoshanda navo tichibatsira kubhadhara mafees inherera dzinenge dzisina mai nababa. Saka tinoedza chose kuvatsvagira zvavanoda zvechikoro zvakafanana nemabhuku, mauniform nekubhadhara mafees. Saka ndovatakanyatsotarisana navo. Asi tozotarisa kune vamwe zvakare vane zvipo paunoona kuti mwana wechikoro anonyatsochigona. Baba vanogona kunge vakangoenda kwavakaenda, amai havatokwanisi kana kubatsira mwana kuti aendere mberi nechikoro. Saka izvozvo zvinenge zvaone case by case basis. Ndo vamwe vevana vatoshanda navo. Tozoita zvemitambo yenhabvu nema-mentorship circles atinoita kuti izvona tirambe tichichengetedza vana vari muzvikoro tichimisa dambudziko rekurodzwa vari vadiki.
While we're on that issue, we heard the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, who were actually supposed to be on the program today, saying that they're going to take strict disciplinary measures to any school that is not accepting ZIG. Do you think this will work as school fees?
I think if the school is a government school, they're going to comply with the government directive. But it doesn't mean that the ordinary person has the money itself, the ZIG that they are taking the money at. We are saying that there was a drought this year. So we have children of farmers who do not have anything, don't have a recourse. And some of them, because they have both parents or because their parents are farmers, they are not even on BEAM, the Government Assistance Program for Education. So those are the gaps that we need funding for. So, yeah, as a government, they may force some schools to take the ZIG, but it may not really make a difference to most suffering Zimbabweans.
Thank you so much. I understand we have Mr. Robson Chere on the line. We seem to have lost Ms. Ndlovu, but Mr. Chere, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me on the program. Greetings to you all listeners.
Thank you so much. Tell us, what are you seeing on the ground? And also some people might want to know which organization you stand for.
I'm the National Secretary General of Amalgamated, which has been in Zimbabwe, and also a teacher at Chere High School.
So what are you seeing on the ground? We've heard the government, they're saying they are going to enforce for schools to receive payments of school fees in ZIG, and disciplinary action will be taken against those schools that don't comply. What do you say about this directive?
What the government is actually stating that they will force the schools to accept ZIG. It's just a publicity stunt. One thing on the ground, which is a reality, is that the ZIG is not active in our economy. Several entities are not even accepting ZIG. We even saw it even from the president himself during this weekend when he was even dishing out United States dollars to one vendor in Mashingo. So the ZIG, for schools to operate, definitely they need USD, because the USDs are the ones that are active in the economy. For them to buy all the materials that are needed at the school, it means that they also need USD. But the issue is not only about schools accepting ZIC or USD. The issue is about the government funding the education, since basic education is a right in the Constitution. So it is the government that must be funding the basic education and honor the obligation that is there in our national Constitution than to enforce something that is not feasible. So we would want to urge the government to fulfill its constitutional mandate by funding education than forcing schools to accept any current that is not active in the economy that can actually lead to the deterioration of the functioning of a school ecosystem.
Saka imi dai hurumende yanga yakateerera pari zvino maivaudza kuti chii makamirira sangano renyu reATUS?
Isusu sangano redu reATUS tichitarisa kunyange kuvhurwa kwezvikoro mangwana pamwe chete nemabhadhariro achaitwa mafizi nezvose kuhurumende isitoti hurumende ngaiwedzere varairidzi mari. Imi danho takatotora mari yatiri kutaura imari inosvika pa$1,260 United States dollars. Tinoziva kuti kune mitoro yakawanda yakaindodiswa nafinance minister iyo iri kuita kuti vanhu vatambure zvikuru kunyanya isu varairidzi. Totarisa futi kuti zvinhu zvaakwira muzvitoro zvokuti mari iri kutambira varairidzi ishomani yangofanana neyatinoti mitero yembwa haina chainokwanisa pakutenga. Saka tiri kuti varairidzi takalkuleta tikaona kuti mure yevanhu 5 yevarairidzi inoda $1,260 United States dollars. Ende ndo yatinokumbira kuti hurumende inge ichipa varairidzi. So zvoreva kuti munenge musina bongozozo muzvikoro. Varairidzi vanenge vaakukwanisa kuenda kuchikoro vachikwanisa kudzidza, vachikwanisa kunge vasiya vana vawane chekudya, vachikwanisa kunge vachibhadharirawo vana vavo kuzvikoro kwavanoenda. Uyezve totasawo kuhurumende toti mari yemazigiri avari kuzama kuti itambirwe muzvikoro kana kuti itirwe isu vashandi, mari haisi kushanda nekuti mari iyo iri kurambwa makawanda zvikuru. Tikatotarisa kunyangwe nemamwe masectors anokondorerwa nehurumende mari iyo haisi kubvumirwa pa kana yakupiwa kwatiri tokuti aiwa kurasirirwa kunonzi mari ndeyenyu inovarombo ivo vapfumi vachiburika mari mazakwatira emari dzemaunited states dollars vachitenga mota dzinodhura dzimwe dzinotenge dzichafema vachingopakura vachikwane vamwe vavo kuti endai munoona navhiki apiwa imota yakati. Asi varairidzi vari kutambura munhamo, zvikoro zvonzi ndizvotambira imari isiri kushanda iyi. Saka hurumende yedu inofanira kukoshesa vashandi. Ivo tazvirumbungiro renu remutemo kuti vashandi avo vanofanira kupiwawo mihoro yakakodzera, mihoro inoita kuti vaonekerewo, uye sawo kuti mari inge ichienda muzvikoro zvinoererana nebumbiro renu remutemo sekuti zvikoro zvavanhu vachapakura dzidzo yepamusoro zviine zvikwanisiro zvese zvakakwana zvinosanganisira mabhuku, furniture pamwe nezvimwe zvakafanana neindaneti pamwe nemacomputers zvoita kuti zvedu inge ichienda mberi.
Aiwa, batai makadaro. Thank you so much, Mr. Robson Chere there from ATUS. I'll come back to you, Ndongwe Chikowero, mungoti pamazwi enyu ekupedzisira kuti takatarisa iwo mwaka uno we-second term muchange muri kubatsira sei vamunoshanda navo?
Tichange tibatsira mukubhadharira ma-school fees nekutenga ma-uniform nemabooks sezvatagara tichiita. Dambudziko ratinosanganawo naro ndiro rekuti maticha anoti havasi kubhadharwa vobva vadhimanda ma-extra lessons kuvana, and ukasavabhadharira manje ma-extra lessons aya vana vaya vanofoira. Saka rimwe redambudziko ratinenge tichisangana naro, one of our major request ndeyekuti dai zvaibvira hurumende yaisa chikafu muzvikoro, because vana vedu vemaruva vari kufamba distance yakakura kuenda kuzvikoro. Saka vakakwanisa kuwana waka free lunch, kare taimbodza kuti vana vaimbopuwa maheu chaiwo. Saka vakakwanisa kuwana chekubata dumbu zvinovabatsira. Kuvana vasikana vowaniswawo zvinhu zvakaita semasanitary pads. So chinenge chiri chishuro chedu kubva kuhurumende as well.
Thank you so much there. I think we're actually running out of time, but I really want to take this opportunity. Maybe Mr. Chere, if you can just give us in 10 seconds your last word. I understand we've lost him, but we've really come to the end of our show. So I'd like to thank Mr. Robson Chere of ATUS. We also had earlier on Ms. Ndlovu, who's out in the rural areas, who came in, but we lost her on the phone. She's also with ATUS. And then we had Ms. Luci Chikowero, who is with MTC Educator Go Foundation here in the United States, but works with rural young girls in Nyanga and other districts in the rural areas. And that brings us to the end of our show. Signing off in Washington, I'm Marvellous Mhlanga-Nyahuye.